Okay, thank you again for your patience and helping me get through this. It's been a little rough today. Don't take I-5. With that being said, I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 4:16. Today is Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. Let it be known that all members of the council are present with the exception of Councilmember Alvarado. With that being said, I am looking for a roll call. Okay, and then approval of agenda.
No changes, Mayor.
Very good. Need to make a motion for approval. Hearing.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Espinoza, second by Councilmember Olvera. Roll call vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Prout,
Yes.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Givens.
Yes. Okay, very good. Moving into public comment time. None online and no one here. That being said, we will close public comment and we'll move directly into our management report. Item number 1, which is the fiscal year 2022-2023 operating budget. Proposed department additional request approvals, which is workshop number 4. City Manager.
So, Mayor and Council, we are pleased this evening to present to you the Department of Additional Requests. As you recall, at the last workshop we had with you regarding the budget, our department directors presented to you not only an overview of their departmental operating budget for fiscal year 2023-2024, but included with their presentation was also additional requests. And at that meeting, it was just an introduction of those items. At this meeting, we will be presenting those to you again, and then I'll be asking for a thumbs up, thumbs down as to which ones you would like to approve. So that we will then take that information and roll it up into the final budget so that our finance director and the team can finalize the budget and we can have a draft proposed operating budget as required per the city charter on or before June 1st. So this afternoon, our finance director, Roger Sanchez, and myself, we're going to tag team the presentation. And so I'm going to go ahead and have Roger kick it off.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. So we would like to continue on the discussion for the additional request. The information previously provided on the previous workshops included budget information, operating budget that pertains to maintain the current service levels. So all of the information did not include what we're requesting on this meeting, with the exception of the CAP, which we had a dedicated capital improvement projects before. So this is the first summary related to the general fund surplus. So on the top section, we have total revenues at $36.25 million. The top portion is the taxes, which represents about 88.7% of the total revenue. So this is significant sources of revenues for the general fund, the largest. Then we have the fees for services, license and permits, and other revenues. So on the bottom section, we have the total expenditures related to the general fund. As you can see, the labor cost, which is the wages and benefits, at $13.22 million, which represents 36.5% of the total revenues. Then we do have the plant operations at $4.35 million, which is about 12% of the total revenues. And then we have the required operations or utility cost. Then we have internal charges at $2.81 million or 7.8% of the total revenues. And then we have the other non-operational at 13.5, which is mainly from the sales tax agreements. So if you can see, the total revenues exceed the total expenditures, meaning we can cover those expenses. And then if we subtract the CAP that you had previously approved during April meeting at $680,000, then we can see an estimated general fund surplus of $1.18 million or 3.3% of the total revenue. So again, there's a surplus. This is a conservative, meaning most likely we'll have a higher than this. And the reason is usually from history, we get the taxes are higher than we estimate. But more than that, on the labor cost, we spend less usually than what we estimate on the budget. And mainly because from police department, there's a lot of vacancies throughout the year. So keep that in mind. This is a conservative estimate. We should expect a surplus for the upcoming year. Again, this is a focus on the general fund to begin with. And once we take into account the surplus, now we should subtract anything that you approve tonight. And so that we can estimate the new surplus once we take into account. So the top section are the one-time request that was previously taken by the department heads, and which is $368,000. And the bottom section is the total ongoing cost. So the one-time request, we do have the financial model, long-term financial planning for $50,000 in consulting fees that we estimate. And then we do have a request from police for the radio replacement as $68,000. And then the vehicle replacement, which is a normal turnover of vehicles that we usually have. That would be 2 vehicles at $150,000. We also have economic development consulting fees at $40,000 and economic development for branding at $60,000. Again, for the total of $368,000. For the ongoing cost, which is, we would expect to repeat year over year, we do have the request from police for a new records technician at $105,000 estimate. We also have a new dispatch supervisor at $121,000. For the animal control, there's a mandated for vet services at $16,000 that we expect to have on ongoing. Public Works made a request for a new engineer at estimated cost of $160,000. So this is a point of reference, $160,000. The impact for the general fund would be at $80,000. The other half would be for the enterprise funds. There's also a new analyst request from the city manager's office at an estimated cost of $140,000. And from the planning department, a new planner at estimated at $140,000. So again, for a subtotal ongoing cost for $602,000. From the previous information, we can take that the initial surplus, and we subtract the one-time request. And then we subtract the ongoing cost, and we would estimate a surplus in the general fund of $229,000 at this point. So if you were to approve those tonight, with that, the city manager is going to provide some more insight and also some context onto those requests.
Thank you, Roger. Council, I'd like to go back. So just a point to make on the vehicle replacement. I know the 150,000, as you know, we have a vehicle replacement program for the police department. So this is the kind of routine rotation or replacement of vehicles in the police department. The Economic Development Consulting and Branding, that is a recommendation from the Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee. So this was in consultation with the ad hoc committee, with them, the two members, which is Mayor and Councilmember Olivera, making a recommendation for the full 100,000. So what's being proposed is, as you know, we have hired Cosmont and Associates that are providing high-level economic development support. Specifically, right now, the scope of work consists of assisting the committee staff, particularly to navigate and to attend the ICSC that's scheduled next week, Sunday through Tuesday, and making contacts. We got some material, marketing material that they've assisted us with in terms of sites, city-owned sites, other sites in the city, and with the soon to be open recruitment for the economic development director, we're proposing in the ED ad hoc committee is recommending to continue services with Cosmont to provide that high level economic development support to keep the momentum going even after we come back from the ICSC next week. And so that's what the 40,000 represents. The economic development branding, this is again from the ED ad hoc committee to undertake a process for branding in terms of the city. Branding is commonly used in the private sector. It's what people identify a particular entity with. And so we're proposing 60,000 for that. Any questions on that? I'm going to ask you either of you, Mayor or Councilmember Olivera, on those two items from the ED ad hoc committee, if there's any additional comments you wanted to make.
40-60, right?
Yes, for a
60.
total of 100,000.
Yeah, no, I have, outside of that, as far as the ED is concerned, I think Cosmont has been a really nice shining bright light. They've done a great job thus far. I wish I had the pamphlet in front of me that they've created for this event. I think they've really kind of dug in and my opinion, and Mr. Meadows, you can tell me differently. I feel like they've kind of dug in really well and try to help us through this process, not just getting there, but understanding what we have available to us. Almost kind of showing us like, hey, you know, the options are endless and where you want to go. And I feel like they've got a lot of resources and connections that can help us to obtain, you know, really that future objective, what we want to go to. So.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with the mayor. I think a lot of the information that they've provided to us has given us the knowledge that we need in order to make these investments and see where it's going to be and what opportunities we have for the city. And I think without having the economic development director, I think that's the best approach at this time, to go with them so that they can continue with that until we feel or we decide that that's something that we need to move forward with.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to provide the committee members an opportunity to chime in. Okay, so as you know, we've gone through this exercise in the past because it is a workshop. You're not formally voting on any of these, but we do ask you to do a thumbs up, thumbs down on these items. I'm gonna, when we talk on the ongoing and the positions that are being requested, I'm going to have each of the directors come up and just provide some additional information on that to you specifically. I'm familiar with what they're asking for, but they have more intimate knowledge as the directors for their respective departments. I will make a note that our Public Works Director, Mike James, is attending a family matter today, and in his place, we have a Deputy Public Works Director, Marcos Torres, who will be providing some information on that. So with the one-time request, the first item is the financial forecast model. I've previously shared with council that this forecast model is a tool. It's a management tool, both for staff, but more importantly for council, that one of the things we are looking to do, and we'll have more further discussion Thursday as we talk about goals, is a financial forecast model gives us the ability to make present day decisions with an outlook to the future. And we're able to say we're going to, for example, some of these positions that we're requesting, we would be able to put that into the budget, say it's 3 years out, you know, you put that amount in there and it's able to calculate the impact to the budget, to reserves, on and so forth. Labor negotiations, again, if a labor group is proposing a certain COLA or certain amount of equity in terms of salaries, we're able to use that model to put the percentage that they're asking. And again, it calculates what that impact would be. It's a 10-year outlook. I can tell you from experience that years 1 to 3 are kind of spot on. You get to years 3 to 5, starts getting a little blurry. You get out to 5 and 7, it's kind of really blurry. And 8 to 10, you're just making a more of an educated guess. But the point is that it's a tool, and it allows you to see visually the impacts to the budget, to reserves. You're also able to manipulate the dashboard to where if it's a recession, you're able to tell it, yeah, we're gonna have a recession percentage. If PERS interest rates go up, you're able to make that adjustment. If council were to want to decide to invest additional monies in, say, road maintenance at $1 million a year or something like that, you're able to put that variable in there. And again, it calculates what the impacts are to the budget. So it's a tool. And it's, I think, a very valuable, considering what we're talking about with our strategic plan. And we're going to need additional resources, obviously, to increase organizational capacity. And so we're recommending to council the one-time request of the $50,000 for the financial forecast. Thumbs up or thumbs down on this one? You can just say yes or no. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know what kind of, I can show you thumbs. or
maybe you have
say
two.
Yes.
Does that? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
She
I have my
put
glasses
thumbs,
on, I
she
still
put
didn't
thumbs
see.
up. Yeah, no,
Okay.
she's using those things.
All right, and we have our city clerk tallying up. So, okay. So financial forecast model is a go. Police radio replacement. I didn't put this as a mandate, but it is necessary for officer safety. It does replace the older radios, and this is a newer technology. So we are recommending approval of this one-time purchase in the amount previously stated of $68,500.
I'm good with that. I do have a question. He's like, oh
Chief?
man, how many of the older radios do we have?
We currently have enough radios for everybody.
Is 15 gonna make it? 15 will make a dent,
There'll be about
about half.
What
Okay.
won't cover half, but it's, it'll do quite a bit.
Okay, but we'll be okay. Like they'll marry together nicely still.
Indeed,
Okay,
I am assured.
something I presume, guys, that we're gonna be needing to do again next year.
Yes.
Just kind of until we can get it. Technology has changed faster in the last 3 to 5 years than it has before, but yes, I'm with you. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
She's streaming.
Yeah, I'm noticing there's not a helicopter on this, so I guess we're doing okay. Yeah, I got a thumbs up.
Thumbs up? Okay. Police vehicles. This is, like I said, our routine annual replacement of vehicles you've approved in the past. And because of the lead time with the manufacturers right now, as soon as the budget's adopted July 1st, the chief will be placing an order, because there's probably, what are we up to now? About 9 months, 6-9 months lead time or more.
So the question I have is, what do you see for the future with this changing in gas models?
Oh, yeah, good question.
I mean, what are we gonna be looking for
Change in what? I missed it.
from the gas model cars?
I
Like
believe we're gonna
CNG,
be gas model.
electric, or
They're gonna let law enforcement have gas cars?
I believe there will be an exemption because there will still be gas model vehicles allowed on the street.
For a while, huh?
And we're gonna need to be able to overtake them from time to time. And an electric car, not likely to do a lot of
Unless you want to buy Teslas.
that. However,
What
a lot of our support vehicles,
What?
our support vehicles and support non-patrol.
It's really an
I-
unknown.
We're gonna be going that way. for
Yeah,
sure.
well, the reason I asked is I didn't know if you'd heard anything besides the fact that it's pretty unknown what's gonna happen here. I'm
Yeah.
not too sure. going all the way, but
Be a short pursuit.
we could put it, we'll put it with high-speed rail.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God.
I know. Good question though.
We'll see what the prices go up or down, huh?
Yeah, it's probably gonna go up. If you recall, we came back last year with a budget amendment because from the time that we
Mhm.
placed the order to when the vehicle, from the time we got the quote to when we went to place the order, the cost had gone up, I think, $10,000 or $11,000.
Yeah,
Per
yeah,
vehicle,
I remember
so,
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Thumbs up, sir.
thank you. On the economic development, you can take it in total amount, 100,000 for both, with the split being 40-60, or you can take it individually. But my recommendation is the full 100,000, 40,000 for consulting services, 60,000 for branding. So total 100,000.
Give a thumbs up for me.
Bob, you got some work to do. All right. Okay. These are staff ongoing request. If I may, I'm gonna call on the chief, just give some additional information on each, the technician, the dispatch, and how we're recommending that. Chief?
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, as I mentioned before, these two positions are kind of connected. In the first case, the records technician will be sort of the face of the new substation. So this will be the smiling face that makes first contact with the folks that want to come in for services over there. And there's going to be a slow roll into how many days per week we go, but we're going to need some front time to recruit and do an extensive background and then train and then prepare for when the substation is up and running in about a year. The dispatch supervisor position, I think I have mentioned it before. Our dispatch professionals currently do a lot of overlap records work. So we've grown to an extent, we've got ourselves into a position to where it's time to create a dispatch supervisor position. And that is going to speak to their ability to have a supervisor with them that knows and is trained in communications at a level that they need as a group. Currently have 6 supervisors, and if you look at it like a shift, that the on the law enforcement side, they have about a span of control of about 5. So a dispatch supervisor makes sense in this case. They will have 6 dispatchers or communication specialists to supervise, and so we've come to the point where we're ready to kind of bifurcate the two and create a succession for both classifications. So that's the strength on those two. And currently there is an admin sergeant that's in charge of dispatch, and that will allow the admin sergeant to do admin sergeant things, so that are vitally needed. Happy to answer any questions.
If I may, Mayor, I'm gonna go through the positions and then that way you're not having a vote. We can come back and then, because this is where the bulk of it is.
Absolutely.
And so, the next position we're requesting is a new engineer position for Public Works. So I'm gonna ask Deputy Director Marcos to provide some additional information on this position request. Marcos.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, Marcos Torres, Deputy Public Works Director. So the additional need being requested for Public Works is the addition of a staff engineer, specifically within the engineering division. The benefit will be to ensure that the new city engineer that'd be hired in the next couple of months has support, in particularly reducing plan checking, to faster turnaround times on those. Also reducing contracted engineering for capital improvement projects. as well as taking some of the workload of our former associate engineer who recently got promoted to deputy director. He'd be doing a lot more administrative work. And also this position, it's important to point out that this is be a benefactor of our long-term succession planning within Public Works. So be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
And to confirm, this is in, the engineers in addition to, right? Because we are replacing the one so eventually you'll have, you find them, eventually you'll have two in that position. Okay.
That's correct, right? Yes. Okay. Okay, Mayor and Council, next position is in the administration, basically the city manager's office. This is a request for an administrative analyst. So if you recall, a couple of years ago when we embarked in the initiative of community engagement, which was to not just inform our residents, but to engage them, to get feedback, to also promote the community. And so that has evolved, and we are very active in that regard, in that arena. The many platforms that we utilize, it's not just Facebook, it's Instagram, has really grown. And the initiative we have, and what's happened is our community has really expected that. They've really caught on to that. And it's a way for us to provide information, keep them engaged. And if you look at some of the comments that we get, a lot of them is probably more positive than negative, right? And so we use that to continue to expand our services to make sure that the customer service is to the exceptional level that our residents expect, and to promote community events, to promote employees, to overall, continue to enhance that communication piece with our community. So because it has evolved, the task, the administrative support that the current incumbent, the community engagement manager, has provided in the city manager's office, and Rachel's here, it's really consumed a lot of her time. What I'm proposing is an administrative analyst that would basically assume a lot of those support tasks that she currently does for the city manager's office. Meetings, Zoom meetings, a lot of you get invites from her, setting up other community meetings that I'm involved with, providing support, research. The new analyst would be able to do more intensive research, more complex analysis. Interestingly enough, you may or may not be aware, for a city our size, we don't have a single analyst position in any of our departments. And so this would be one of the first. Eventually, we may even consider coming back with like a crime analyst, which is something that the police department, it's a common position that you see in police departments because they analyze crime, they analyze patterns, and they are able to kind of map and see where certain crime activities happening. And it's a tool that police departments are used to set up certain areas of additional patrol, or if they see petty thefts, cars breaking in, or whatever the case may be, they're able to use that data. So that's an example of other positions, analyst positions, that in the future you'll see us coming back to you. So in this case, the administrative analyst would support the city manager's office in the administrative function, so that our community engagement manager can focus more on everything we're doing with the community engagement. My perspective, my opinion is that if the community has come to expect that level of engagement, and if we scale back or lose that momentum, we're going to lose that engagement, right? It's human nature that, things become stale. They become kind of the same routine. You lose interest, right? So I think there's a lot of new methods that we're looking to, or initiatives. To give an example, we've reached out to Shafter High School. And I think all of you have had a chance to tour during I forget the event they have once a year.
Principal partner.
Yeah, Principal Partnership Day. They have a state-of-the-art studio. I had an opportunity to go tour it last week with the mayor and Rachel. And it's a tool. And so we're looking to partnering with Shafter High School and this particular class, so that we can take our community engagement to a new level, to do video logs, or there's terminology I don't know. So if I repeat it, don't think I know what I'm talking about, but Rachel's here. You want more particulars. So we're looking to engage the community in a new area using new tools. And so that's an example of how Rachel's time is really getting consumed. And so that's the reason for this position. Any questions on that? Okay. And the last position, and just as important, is one new associate planner in the planning department. So I'm going to have Steve, our planning manager, provide you some additional information.
Yes, yes. Honorable Mayor and Council, yeah, my request is an entry-level associate planner. Currently, planning is holding its own with counter planning, which I would consider like your sort of quick burn site plan reviews, week, 2 weeks. Then there's sort of current planning, which is your kind of, 2 to 4 month kind of projects, your CUP, your general plan amendments, the stuff that you would see or that the planning commission would see. And then there's advanced planning, which is more of your long-term planning, your housing element we're doing now, the general plan update, the need for an EJ element, things of that nature, need to update the safety element, the circulation plan, et cetera, et cetera. Currently, like I said, the planning department is treading water with the counter and current planning. But with these future advanced planning needs that are going to take up, sometimes in they're a 2 to 5 year process. I can foresee that without building capacity now, the needs of those advanced planning assignments are going to cause a bottleneck, and I think will eventually erode level of service. You've got to also realize that we're growing, so our current and counter planning is just going to grow. We're at a 4% annual growth rate right now in the city of Shafter, which is great, which means more plans are coming in the door. But with that, we just still have only 2 people. And in fact, one of the last things the senior planner kind of divulged to me before she left was the reason we haven't done advanced planning is we haven't had time to do advanced planning. And we could sort of, just be in our laurels because we had plans that were, we're still relatively young, but now some of these advanced planning documents, such as the general plan, are over 20 years old, including the EIR that we hinge our CEQA analyses on and allow the streamlining of projects to occur. That's going to become more and more difficult over time. So we would like to have a entry-level planner so that they could take on more of the counter planning, the stuff that an entry-level planner should do, the quick burn kind of stuff, which will allow more advanced planning tasks to be shifted to myself and my senior planner, as well as current planning. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
I'll come back to these, Mayor. I'm going to. Okay. These are easy ones, only because one of them is a mandate. And you heard from Chief with regards to animal control services, veterinarian services. And so this is, I believe, the $16,000 ongoing. So this is an easy one. I think we're recommending thumbs up because it's a mandate. So just want to get council concurrence on that.
Mandate.
The other is net zero impact to the police department, to the budget. But I'm going to have our IT manager, Johnny Rubio, just kind of give you a high level overview of the role of this position, because we're not asking for budget. We're just asking for authorization for the position only. So, Johnny.
So, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, as discussed previously, we've seen a steady uptick in support tickets from between PD and the IT department. This isn't a bad thing. It's a great thing. We see that the department continues to invest in resources, in new computer systems that allows them to perform their jobs a lot more efficiently. But just like any other computer or any other device, it requires support at times, maintenance, periodically. So we're addressing this need, and we're hoping to have this role spend 80% of its time between animal control, PD, and the new substation once that's up and ready to go. Just to let you know, sometimes shifts become issues. So this position will be a bit flexible. That way we can make sure that support is given, to all shifts, whether that means we have to change up the schedule from time to time, but it'll allow our staff to perform their jobs more efficiently. So unless there's any questions, that's all I have.
Yeah, I have one. So it's, you're requesting the position, but is it somebody that's already there that's going to be dedicated to that, to these areas, or how is that?
It's
already-
not anyone that's currently there now. We're hoping to actually
Okay,
float this position out and get someone who is qualified and start learning all the systems that PD currently uses on a day-to-day basis.
so the cost is going to come at later date as
No,
far as
so,
like the.
so as we shared with you, you look at the historical trend of the police department salaries, and they carry between a 3% and 5% vacancy historically. So we have unused money, basically. So we're proposing to take some of those monies to fund this position, 80% of it, because we know that when we look at the trend, we're always under budget on salaries. And so we believe too that the trend will continue. We've not been able to be at 100% fully complement in terms of our staffing levels. And so we're proposing to use that unused salary to pay for this position. So that's why we're not asking for a budget on it. The other 20% will absorb within our existing departmental budgets, because we're all going to utilize, they're going to be doing service support, tech support to all departments, city manager, planning, public works, on and so forth. So we feel comfortable, I feel comfortable that 20% we can just absorb within the existing budget numbers. So what we're asking for is to increase the authorized positions by one more, in this case, in IT specialist 1/2 positions. That's why I'm asking for authorization of increasing by 1.
Okay, thank you.
Currently, we have Chris, Jose, Scott Wiggins, and Aaron. So it's about 5 total.
Your workload is increasing.
It has, it's something that was to be expected, but at the same time, I think we've gotten to the point where we need a little bit more knowledge shared amongst the group. And a person added to the team would only be beneficial, not only to the IT department for the 20% of the time where we can have their support on projects, but definitely having someone on site to support the police department.
So go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just gonna say, we're experiencing this on the farm right now, with all the extra work that's coming on, and then just can't cover it with the amount of people that you have, no matter how much you want to. There's only so much you can do with so much people.
That's it.
To clarify, Chris is in IT, but he's doing 100% GIS. Well, that and the fiber.
Right.
So, I mean, you don't have every one of those individuals who are actually doing the said work that we're talking about here. And I think that makes a little.
That's correct. And even with Chris, we are also sharing knowledge, right? We're cross-training a bit on the GIS side. Myself included, I helped build his GIS servers, right? At the same time, I'm not familiar with how powerful the GIS, the Esri system is. So we've been cross-training on both ends. He's coming in and is getting exposure to all IT, realizing the security aspects of it, right? The challenges that we're dealing with in multiple aspects. So that's only going to make our department stronger, is increasing this knowledge across the board. Otherwise, you get sick and then you run into those, scenarios where, someone can't take vacation, someone can't take sick time because you have one person that just has all that knowledge. So I think adding this team member will be beneficial for multiple departments.
And Chief, this makes sense to you? This makes sense to you?
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Just to add to the question, Mayor, the tech support is only Johnny and Aaron for our organization. And as we continue to not in the past couple of years, we've integrated more technology. We have plans to integrate even more technology into our operation to streamline our workflow and our processes. And so PD is doing the same. There's now technology where you can basically take a phone size machine, run the driver's license, it prints tickets, right? But that's going to require support. So in the times that we've had peaks, we've brought in outside contractual support, but that's not always functional. It doesn't necessarily work for police services because of CLETS, because of DOJ. They have to get a full background, and only that individual can handle any of that equipment. And Councilmember Oliveri, your former law enforcement, you know, CLETS and DOJ and all that. And so that's the issue we have, that we can't just fill in somebody. So if we assign Aaron, well, then now Johnny's left without a body, and we're having to backfill contractually. We had great success with an intern, but as interns, they're not here to stay, right? They gain experience, their skill set, but they're out there hunting. And, you know, the young man that we had was very valuable to us, provided a lot of support, but he too gained knowledge. And as soon as he felt comfortable, he went out there, got a job, he got hired immediately, right? So that itself is not sustainable either, right? So that's why I'm recommending on this one, approval to authorize the position. Thumbs up, down?
Fine.
Okay. American Council, one other position that I inadvertently left out here is the full-time transit position. Our finance director, the finance department oversees the transit operation. During his presentation at the last workshop, he introduced the item of converting a part-time position to a full-time position. It is a zero impact to the general fund because it would be paid from transit grants. But I'm going to have our finance director talk a little bit more about the position. So, Roger.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. So this position, we're pretty tight with the bus drivers in terms of covering the hours. We're also are having a hard time to fulfill the Saturday service. Because of the COVID grant funding, we have a little bit of an excess cash for the upcoming 4 to 5 years. So all of that can cover if we had a conversion of a part-time driver to a full-time. This would allow us to experiment also with the Gossamer Grove if we need to try something new, or with the industrial park, we can try things for services if there was a need. But when we discuss vacation training and things, we're pretty tight. The required training from the state, from the highway patrol on those bus drivers, and it's pretty tight right now on what we have. And like I said, the grants are there until 2028. I'm talking about excess money in addition to the normal grants. So after 28, we'll still be able to provide grants, but in essence, there's some of this money that we may have to leave behind if we don't, unless we use it. So this is a perfect opportunity for succession planning on the public transit, and also to utilize those funds that we cannot use anywhere else other than public transit. So that would be my recommendation. And if it's okay with Mr. Gonzalez, I also propose a temporary part-time utility billing position at a cost of $45,000, and that would be just for 1 year to help us transition with the. We have a lot of payment arrangements at this point, and also we have the meters installed. So there's a lot of manual entry that we have to do on meters. So as we install new meters, we're hoping that the workload will improve going forward, and then therefore in the future we will not have a need for that part-time person. So
Mayor and Council, just to add, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, but the full-time driver would also be able to assist with some of the administrative functions. Operating a transit operation it's pretty time consuming. You got CHP inspections you have to do. You have to do the pool program, the driver training, got to make sure that we stay on top of that. There's reporting that we have to do to the COG, who is the pass-through for a lot of this transit grants that we get, and so we would be looking to train this person up to be able to assist with some of those functions, thereby relieving both Roger and our accounting manager, Rocio, to focus on what they do. And this full-time position would be able to assume some of that administrative function that goes with the transit operation. And as you heard our finance director say, that this is 100% paid from grants and transit funds, not from general fund. Also, the temporary part-time help would be paid from the utility funds. So it's a net impact. Is it zero net impact to the general fund? Is it would be focused on all the utility payments. As you know, during the pandemic, people were given a pass on not having to pay their utility bills, and that since has been lifted. And so there's a lot of administrative tasks that are involved with putting people on payment plans, monitoring, make sure we stay on top of that. And so this is a position of help the finance staff get caught up with some of this kind of minutia stuff, but it's still necessary that we do that. We want to make sure we get our revenue back for some of those accounts that didn't pay.
So the personnel is covered until 2028, fully covered through the grant until 2028, correct?
Well, until 2028, we have excess cash for public transit. Unless we find a use in public transit, we might lose some of that money.
Okay.
So after 28, we'll continue to get grants, but more at a normal. So right now we have CARES money for transit, ARPA money for CARES transit, and from the air quality also for new buses. So the San Joaquin Valley Air, they just authorized $400,000 for new buses. So we have the money for transit for sure.
That makes sense. So as of now, we're at 150% funded on a year basis. After that 2028 mark, it would feel like we're at 100%. It just
Yes,
normalizes.
the
what we
normal,
currently have.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's better to go with the full-time versus the part-time?
I would say that it's a very high incentive. It's actually very difficult to find people who are licensed for public transit. And they, because Shafter has a reputation, people want to be part of Shafter, but normally people lose bus drivers. And by having this incentive of a full-time driver, which anyways we get covered by grants, we can incentivize those bus drivers to stick around with Shafter. And in the future, we can assess if once we have the two bus drivers full-time, do we need the extra part-time, or if someone retires? So again, it's also for succession planning and to, in some extent, to experiment with if there's a need with the industrial park.
Okay. And then what happens with the requests like what we had before when we didn't have outside service that happened out at Gossamer Road? Are we still having to pursue anything with that?
We're having meetings
Okay.
with some other agencies. We're actually making a little bit more progress
Okay.
on that. Surprisingly, there are other agencies are open. Now that I told our stories, they're open to consider crossing into Shafter. But, if we have exceptions that there's hardly any calls from there, but if we have an exception, well, we can still operate the main core in Shafter, but yet we could theoretically send the extra driver to go out and help out.
So we'll work it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Routes, I mean, our buses, are they bus routes or is it dial?
So,
Dial, correct.
so we have a combination for the city, it's a dial-a-ride. However, we do have a fixed route from the current transit, which comes from Delano, Wasco, Shafter, and it goes to Bakersfield. So that's a fixed route.
Is that ours or the county?
That's the county, that's the current transit, yeah. But it's funded in a similar, through the similar funding. But I just wanted to point out that there's a fixed route that comes to Shafter from current transit. But for the city, like I said, it is the dial-a-ride.
And then the drivers that drive the buses, they have a certain classification with the medical card and they gotta keep up on the logbook.
Class B.
everything that's, yeah.
Yes.
Passenger endorsement, and that's the challenge with trying to hire part-time
Mhm.
because of the licensing requirements and they have to maintain it. And they'll come, work for a little short period of time, but they're all looking to go full-time,
find
either with
something
Get or somebody like that, you know, and we can't hold on to them. And so, like I said, this would be a dual purpose role because they'd be able to drive full-time, and we are getting more requests.
gonna
Wonderful reached out to us about being able to provide service to the industrial park. And you know, that's something we need to look at. That's an unmet transit needs. And so we had another resident, Gossamer Grove, that needs to get into Bakersfield, another unmet need. So we're continuing to grow. And so I think we believe that this position would help assist that to build up the organizational capacity in the transit operation.
And also, if I may, the part of the funding for transit has to do with TDA. And as a requirement, if we want, we get between $700 to $1 million of TDA funding for streets. So we maintain the streets. So that's a very important revenue source for the city of Shafter. But one of the rules is that we have to meet the public transit first before we can use those monies into streets. And so this is one of the reasons why we get 3 separate audits for transit, separate from the regular audit, just dedicated for public transit. Those records are very important. We keep track of how many people ride who are senior citizens, children, regular, and all those things. We have to keep track of all those pieces. The maintenance logs for, you know, for the shop and things like that. So all of those things are taken into account.
I have a question on the current transit. Do we have any, does the city provide any of those cost or pay for those costs, like in percentage wise because of the cities that they serve throughout, you know, Delano, Shafter, Wasco, Bakersfield?
The city
Or is it
does not,
strictly the county?
the city does not pay for those. However, when we go outside of the city limits for transit services, the county pays us a little bit for those.
Okay. And then the other one, like with Gossamer Grove, and I don't know if the grant would allow something like this, but would an option be to partner with like Get to provide services to Gossamer Grove into Bakersfield that would satisfy the scope of work within the grant that we have?
Yes, this is part of the discussions that we're having with both Current Transit and Get and Current Cog. We're trying to, Current Cog is not very, is cautious about us pushing that, but as we met with the other agencies with Get, they're more open to those that connection.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, with regards to it's not there, we just gave you the verbal presentation. With regards to the transit driver going from part-time to full-time, thumbs up, down?
So, thumbs up.
With regards to the 1-year temporary help in the finance department to address the backlog we have with utility accounts, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yes.
Okay, so that concludes the easy ones. We're going to come back now to the okay, so let me go back a couple more slides here. Yeah. Okay, so here's where you see the dollar amount of these 6 positions and what makes up the 602,000. So this is what we're asking for. This is what your city manager is recommending. However, I realize that it's always a challenge with the budget. And when you look at the totality of the one-time with the ongoing, it's the ongoing that's adding approximately 600,000 to our operating budget. When we look at the estimated surplus, and even though, as Roger said, it's a conservative number because the historical trend is that we actually have a little bit bigger surplus than what we have. But being fiscally sound and conscientious, we know that the 600,000 could be a pretty significant amount. So, I've conferred with the, so let me state that these are all positions that we feel are critical or needed. Okay, let me just say that. But realizing that the budget is a challenge and it's a projection, and there's still talks about possible recession and, you know, decrease of revenues, on and so forth, and being mindful. We've gone back and we're prepared to not so much compromise, but scale back some of those positions in this initial budget and we've brainstormed and come up with some ways that we might be able to step back, move forward with one or two of the positions or three, and then come back in mid-year, looking at where we are with revenue. And so even to give you an example, I'll take the administrative analyst position in the city manager's office. There's ways we might be able to do that with part-time help. If we got some extra help, our community engagement manager is reaching out to BC, CSUB to see if there's an intern in either a business administration intern that wants to get into marketing, for example. They might be able to help out with some of that as well. So that would be one position that I wanted to present, kind of plant the seed, but I'm prepared that because of the budget situation, we can scale it back and we have alternatives that we can pursue on the short term. However, in the long term, I think this is something we would need to reevaluate and reassess. But that's an example of how, you know, we can be more mindful in terms of what I'm recommending for those positions. Okay. So if you want to take them one by one, we're prepared to tell you, yes, we need it, or we also have some options on which positions we believe we can scale back, come back at mid-year, reevaluate, and see where the budget's at. So.
I don't know if you need to go one by one on my end.
Okay.
Team, that'll be up to you guys. I understand the need for each one of them. I actually like the idea of looking more at interns for the analysts to start with. I do recognize if you open these positions up today, they're not going to get filled tomorrow. And for some of these, they're not going to get filled for 6 months. And I'm not speaking the doom and gloom. I just understand the issues around it. Both of the police issues are necessary, and they also kind of revolve around the new substation. Not saying that they're needed for the substation, but they revolve around it. So I would like to see us start obtaining these positions, but again, my thought pattern here is I recognize that we're looking at $900,000 for the total request for the year. However, how much of that 600,000 is actually going to be spent in the first 6 months of the budget session, right? So for me, I don't really have a problem with it. I think I'm probably more concerned on the engineer aspect of it. I'm looking at you because our engineer is 7 months away from retiring and there's not a backfill. And again, knowing the market and the trends, I'm fearful we won't have that person sitting in here in time. I don't want to lose that institutional knowledge that Kevin has. He's a valuable asset to us. So I don't want to lose that. Yeah, I don't have a problem with what I see. I think it makes sense, especially knowing these are not positions we're going to see coming in overnight. Okay. Folks, comments, questions, concerns?
Well, I look to the future and I'm thinking that whatever services we're providing right now is going to have to increase with just the predictions of what they say is coming. So I think if we are moving and looking towards that direction, I see that as being a big plus. But I'm like you, Chad. I mean, we're gonna be a while filling some positions. It's just gonna take some time. But I think it's just a work in progress where you're always working in that mindset. So
put something on hold for 6 months. Oh, sorry. I don't know how that happened. You put something on hold for 6 months to come back and talk about the budget, and then we're now 6 months behind the curveball and trying to get a position in. It's just my mindset of looking at it. We can come back in 6 months and talk about, did we fill those positions? And if we haven't, do we need those positions, right? We can have that conversation and wrap it and look a little different. Okay, I'm done talking.
Well, and everyone knows my concerns with the revenue, and maybe 6 months will say something too. I understand our advance. I understand the fact that we are in the growth pattern, and after listening to the economic summit even this Saturday, the growth is coming to this area, and we know it's coming even into the Shafter area because we are in that mode. As we drive out in the 7th Standard area, you see where even Bakersfield is going to be picking up some of that growth. So you wonder how much more is going to continue with Gossamer as fast paced as it is, and yet I believe it's coming here. So, we have to do what we have to do to be ready for it, because most people in the community have always asked, how are we going to satisfy the needs that are going to happen out in that area? Animal control, we didn't get into a whole lot of detail if we're going to have another vehicle to satisfy the needs. People are very passionate about animals, and we're going to have that. And the mandates that have come even with animals, just in that own department. There was another position that I thought, is it in the IT? Do we need to have another vehicle? We didn't talk much about adding vehicles for some of these employees that possibly would be coming on. But are we going to have some more vehicles too?
As far as IT, no. As far as seeing the
No.
chief on Public Works, no either. So.
Yeah, it's hard to say no on positions. It's hard to say that one of them is more important than the other. As far as planning, I don't know if Steve knew it, but we knew when we first started having to replace Wayne, and that Suzanne was going to be leaving too in a couple of years, that the position really needed to have 3 people. So that's not new to us. And because we are having growth, I think that's an important one to have to look at and to try to find them. I mean, we've had a hard time finding people. And so, I don't know. How can I say no and how can I say yes? We got to go full force and hire tomorrow and hope that we can fill all of them. Ongoing costs are probably the biggest concern I have, because then you're really committed. So somehow staff's going to have to work it out.
Yeah, and all the comments each of you have made are I agree with, and we've talked about increasing operational capacity. And we're a city our size, we probably have a workload of more of a mid-sized city because of our growth. I mean, the Department of Finance just listed us as one of the fastest growing cities in the state. I think about 4%, 4 or 5%, I believe. 4.2. Okay. So that doesn't seem to be slowing down, because you look at the past years, it's a similar number that we've been growing, right? You stretch the organization, we're a flat organization. And when you start stretching that band too far out, what's going to suffer is the customer service aspect. That's because our staff can only do so much in terms of what we're doing. We talk about even planning, long range planning. We got that general plan is getting very critical, that we need to start the process. And those of you that have been on council or on the planning commission, that update to a complete overhaul of your general plan is anywhere between the best case scenario, 18 months, 2 years, if not longer, because you got to do the EIR, you got to do all that, you got to do the focus group meetings, everything else. So by the time you start the process to when you actually come to adopt through all the hearings, you're looking at least at a 2-year process with that. Right.
So when you look at it and you see these good positions, I mean, they're needed, but which one is the first priority? A priority over one over the other.
So let me say this, all these positions are priority
Well, one of them's got to be more so.
to each department. And I know what you're saying, but
You guys, you understand where we are. I mean, hire a person and you don't want to have to lose them. You want to keep them. And yet if you don't have funds, I mean, what do you do then? The
Yeah.
services will go down.
right. And I can tell you, Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor and Council, that we've been very diligent. This is the bare minimum positions. What we originally started with, at least I can tell you, was a lot longer in terms of positions that we need. So this is what we what I consider based in consultation with our directors, kind of the bare minimum that we need to incrementally build that organizational capacity. No one position is of a greater priority than the other because each department has its own priorities. Police department, you know, as you heard the chief talk about with the records technician and the dispatch supervisor, you know, we know the substation's coming, right? Just to give you a quick update, chief and I met, we went over a conceptual layout from the architect in terms of the spacing. So we have we don't have anything to share with you just yet because we're still going through more of the staff level planning. But that's coming. We know that's going to happen, right? And Mary, you said we can either wait 6 months when the train's already leaving the station, or we can prepare now and be visionary and start hiring, knowing what the market is, right? The dispatch supervisor, this is not only for succession planning, but the call volume service has increased. The dispatching has become more sophisticated in terms of the training and required by post, and all the work that they do. And administratively, the sergeant that is assigned, administrative sergeant, you know, there's a lot more administrative tasks that is taking place that they need to follow up. The engineer, I mean, you got Gossamer Grove, you got all these other projects going on. And as you heard, our Marco, the Deputy Public Works Director, is a great need in there as well. Planner, definitely, if you were to ask me, I mean, I'd be willing to sacrifice the analyst position for a while, right? But that's an area that we have a little bit of flexibility, but we can come back at a later time. I mean, it just mean that some of the initiatives we want to do with community engagement, we may need to scale back. We may not be able to do them right away. We can look for part-time help, or even interns that can fill some of those gaps.
So you understand where we're coming from.
That's why I'm kind of walking through these positions. So to your question, Mayor Pro Tem, I think I would recommend still the records technician, the dispatch supervisor, the engineer, and the planner. And I would pull back the analyst, and I think I have some flexibility there. I can still make things work, but definitely those 4 positions.
I think they're all important. Just on my opinion here. I mean, with the police department, the records tech obviously echoing with the substation, that's going to be needed. But then, you know, the dispatch supervisor, that's important. I mean, the dispatchers being involved in that in my past career, I see what they do. They're answering phones, they're on the radio, they got people at the window. There's constantly things happening, and it seems like everything happens at once. It doesn't always happen one, and then it concludes, and then the next thing happens. But I think taking some of those duties away from the administrative sergeant to give it to the dispatch supervisor so that maybe he can dedicate some time to the other potential challenges that are, you know, they're encountering so that they can figure that out. But the engineer, the learning curves, establishing the knowledge and all that, that takes time. And if you're losing, I don't know, Mr. Harmon's how many years of service he has here, but that's, you know, that's a lot of knowledge and experience that you're just walking out the door. And it's going to take time to bring him up to par to where, you know, that person needs to be. The analyst, I see it as an important position. I think we're moving in a direction where we're using a lot of the social media, a lot of different things where we should be focusing on what works and what doesn't. I feel that without that, we're still, in a sense, shooting in the dark and saying, okay, let's see what happens. You know, let's do this and let's see what kind of results we get. We're in a new era, and that's what it is. I mean, our average age is 29.6 years old. And that's, you know, that's the life of that generation. It's being connected and knowing the fact that they can't be here, but they get online or they're seeing what's being posted and things of that nature. I think that's huge for us and to get this information out to the community. And the planner, I mean, with what Steve said, I mean, this is, I think it's crucial as well so that we can get ahead of what's, you know, what we're behind on these projects and get them going. So.
Good.
Yeah, the intern thing makes sense. I echo what he's saying here. You know me, and Rachel probably hates hearing it from me, but I wholeheartedly believe our push on technology in the social media world needs to happen. I don't have a problem with the interns when you start talking on the analyst. I think it makes a lot of sense. I was an analyst, so I do have a little heart for analysts in that realm, but that's okay.
Okay. So, Mayor and Council, I mean, just walk us through the thumbs up, thumbs down. Records technician, thumbs up or down?
Yes.
Up.
Dispatch supervisor, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up,
Public Works engineer,
Yeah.
thumbs up,
planning associate planner.
Yeah.
thumbs up.
On the analyst, can we not do a thumbs down and just bike rack it? I'd like to revisit that in the near future, and I'd
Yeah.
like to
I
leave
would
that
bike,
door open.
can we bike rack and look at interns?
Yeah, that's, yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna bike rack the request for the position. Meanwhile, on a more short term, we'll look at interns and part-time, how extra help. And then I'll bring it back. That's why I'm not asking you to shoot it down. I'm asking you to bike rack it. That allows me the door to remain open for me to come back at 6 months and reassess the need for that. The need will continue to exist, but I can, on an interim basis, have a solution for it.
Sounds good.
All right. Is there anything else before we wrap up, right? Okay, so Mayor and Council, thank you. We will take these positions and we will roll it up into the budget. As I said in my opening comments, the next workshop, we will not have a workshop on June 6th. That will just, our budget presentation will just be part of the regular meeting. You will get the budget book on or about June 1st as required by the city charter. We will publish online. And that budget book will be inclusive of all these positions and everything we've talked about. You'll see the new CIP book as well as was previously presented. And then the SAC meeting in June, June 6th, you have very little comments or questions. We will then move to bring back to you the second meeting of June for budget adoption.
Very good.
Okay, with that, we have nothing further.
All right, that is our final management report of the evening for the special hearing or special meeting. I am looking for a motion for adjournment in a second,
Move
please.
adjourn.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Prout.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Espinoza. All those in favor with aye.
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 Same sign opposed. Hearing none.